Hi, my name is Joshua Bechtold, and today I'm going to be talking about basic financial concepts that every individual should know. But first, let me start with saying that it's a financial jungle out there. 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 40% of Americans didn't even save a penny last year. Almost every baby boomer has not saved enough for retirement. And regarding debt, we have over $1 trillion in credit card debt outstanding, over $1.5 trillion in student loan debt outstanding, and a whopping $14 trillion in total consumer debt outstanding. So let me ask you a question. How much money do you think you need to be wealthy? This could be $50,000, it could be $200,000, it could be $1 million, or it could be $50 million. The bottom line is that you don't have to have $1 million salary to become wealthy. The idea is to let your savings dictate your spending, not the other way around. This is very crucial. But you can do something about it. There is a financial equation in the world of business. It's assets minus your liabilities equals your net worth. This is used for financial companies, public or private, and it can also be used for individuals. The key to success in this equation is to make sure that you budget wisely, manage your debts, and save early and save often. If you do these three things consistently, there's no doubt that you will have a substantial net worth throughout life and during retirement. Now let's start with the first of those three that I was talking about, budgeting. A budget tells us what we can't afford, but it doesn't keep us from buying it anyways. So, once you get your paycheck, how do you plan on spending it? The PowerPoint shows a basic pie chart of different sections that an individual would be spending or saving. The first and most important that you can assume is housing. You have a mortgage, you'll have a rent, everybody needs to pay for that. You have taxes and insurance on those, as well as upkeep for housing. The next thing you'll have is transportation. Most likely you'll need a car or some other form of transportation if it's public or not, but you'll have insurance on that vehicle, that car payment, so you need a budget for that as well. Thirdly is food. Now, this is kind of where it separates from needs and wants. Obviously, you need basic groceries every month, every week, but then you can divulge into basically snacks or any types of extra drinks that you don't really need, but you want. You want a budget for those as well. And finally is everything else. Any type of entertainment, clothing, your cell phone bill, all of this stuff. This should all be categorized into one category, which is basically your wants. You don't need these, but you want them and you want a budget for them as well. So how can I save more money? There are two ways that you can do this. You can either increase your income while keeping your expenses static, or the other way around. You can try to decrease your expenses while keeping your income static as well. Now there's a third option that not a lot of people are successful on doing, where you increase your income while also reducing your expenses. This is a very difficult thing to do, so right now we'll just stick with the first two. That leads me into the next category of debt. College is expensive. If you plan on going, make sure that you are prepared. And if you plan on having children that want to go, there are definitely savings accounts tailored for educational planning. College is expensive. Everybody knows that. You can see with the bar chart from 1990 to 2015, a consistent increase in college tuition, room, and board. As of 2015, the average in-state tuition is $126,000 for a bachelor degree. Now, keep in mind, this is only in-state. If you plan on going out of state, it will be more. So now we have two scenarios where you have a repayment plan on your student loans or any type of loan that you have. The first one is a 10-year repayment at 5% with an initial investment of $35,000. For both scenarios, we'll start with the base $35,000. But with the second scenario, it's a 20-year repayment at 5%. The only difference is that you're paying over the course of 10 extra years. Now you can see with the interest in the first scenario, you're really only paying less than $10,000 in interest for a 5% repayment over 10 years, with your total amount paid is around $45,000. Now what happens if you wait an extra 10 years to repay that loan? Well, your interest that you have to pay doubles to nearly $20,000, and your overall amount that you'll have to pay is $55,000, a whopping $11,000 more, only because you waited 10 years to pay off that loan or pay off that debt. Now let's transition to buying a house. There are many different types of mortgages that banks can offer. Let's just stick with the typical fixed rate mortgage. So a typical mortgage loan, you'll have a 20% down payment on the house, and it could be 15 to 30 year repayment. We'll stick with 30 years right now, which is 360 monthly payments because you'll have a monthly payment on that mortgage. So you have a house that you want to buy for $250,000. If we do the 20% down payments, that's $50,000 that you'll have to have down, which gives you the mortgage loan of $200,000. Now, how are you going to get that money? The amortization schedule on the PowerPoint right now shows a few different options that you can have. The first one is a 20-year loan term with 4%, but the next one is the same 20-year loan only at 6%. And then you have a 30-year loan at 4%, and then the 30-year loan at 6%. The total principal of the loan is going to stay the same at $200,000, but the monthly payment and total interest paid will vary based off of the loan term. If you look at the 20-year 4% loan, the monthly payment is around $1,200, and the total interest paid is really only $90,000. This is the least amount of interest paid because it's the shortest loan term with also the smallest percentage. But if you'll notice, it's one of the higher monthly payments. If you go to the 20-year at 6%, you're obviously paying a little bit more each year, and your ultimate total interest paid is $140,000, roughly $50,000 more than that 4%. It's amazing what 2% can do. Now, if we transition to the 30-year at 4%, this is actually the smallest monthly payment because it's stretched out over the longest time, but with a small interest rate of 4%. But if you notice, the total interest paid is still $140,000, similar to the 20-year at 6%. Now, the last one is the worst one out of the four. If you can avoid this, avoid it. It's a 30-year at 6%. Even though it's not the highest monthly payment, you're paying the most interest. And the interest accrues to $230,000 over the life of the loan, which is more than your total principal. It's crazy what the power of timing and just the small percentage of interest can do. Next, we'll be talking about investing and certain investment options that you can do. So you might be wondering, how do I even start investing? Well, there's a chart on the side that shows that only 52% of Americans invest, so 48% are definitely with you. There are multiple ways that you can start investing. You can start by opening up a taxable account, brokerage account, or money market account, similar to Robinhood or TD Ameritrade. Now this will let you invest in equities, bonds, ETFs, or mutual funds. The next four on the slide are retirement planning investments. The first two are the Roth IRA and traditional IRA. These are retirement accounts that are not employer-sponsored. So you can go to any bank and open these up yourself. The difference between Roth and traditional is that with a Roth IRA, any contributions you make throughout the year are not tax deductible. You will be taxed on those contributions that you make during that year. However, the upside is that as you accrue interest, as you accrue gains on that amount, and then you eventually start to take it out during retirement, whenever you take out that money, that is tax-free. So you basically have growth on your investment that is tax-free, and during retirement, it's also tax-free. Now, traditional IRAs are the exact opposite. You have a non-taxable contribution whenever you contribute in the year, but during retirement, the distributions are taxed. Now the last two are defined contribution plans and defined benefit plans. These are both employer-sponsored. The main difference is that with defined contribution plans, the employer offers you a set of investment choices in which you choose, in which you want to make, and then you make those contributions with the employer matching maybe dollar for dollar or 50 cents on the dollar of your contribution into that account. This is basically free money. Now with defined benefit plans, the employer has more of the risk. You're enrolled in the plan and you make contributions to the pension benefit plan, but all of the investment risk and the investment decisions are made by the employer, not you. So you might be asking yourself, why should I even invest? Albert Einstein has a quote that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it. Now let's start with an example. If you have $1,000 that you put into an account and you just let it sit there for 50 years, and we can safely assume that you invest it at a 9% compounded interest rate. I'm only saying 9% because the S&P 500 index, which is the most common index used to evaluate the stock market, has an annual return of roughly 8 to 10% over its historical life. So we'll just safely go with 9%. Well, in 10 years, that $1,000 will grow to roughly $2,400. Now, it doesn't sound like much, but let's add 5 years onto that. Instead of growing to $2,300 or $2,400, it'll go up to $3,600. Now, let's say we add 10 years to that, and you invest it for 25 years. That $1,000 at a 9% will grow into $8,600. But now, let's wait the entire 50 years. You don't touch it, and it grows 9% compounded annually. That's a whopping $74,000 that you would have saved, that you would have invested just with $1,000 at the beginning. Now, I know $1,000 might be a lot for some people, but for others, it's really not. And this is a basic financial concept of compounded interest that people really don't take for granted. You can definitely earn a lot of money with this idea. Now, there is a chart that kind of describes a similar scenario where we, again, have the 9% rate of return, but this time we're investing annually. We're not just putting down a $1,000 payment and just letting it sit there. We're going $2,500 a year we are putting into a taxable brokerage account, an IRA, or a defined contribution plan, anything like that. Now you can see the differences between starting at the age of 25, 35, and 40. Now, if you start at the age of 25 and you consistently do this, you can see that for the next 40 years, your $2,500 annual contribution would grow to almost $1 million. However, if you wait 10 years, that'll go down to not even $400,000. And if you wait longer, even less. The main concept behind this is the fact that the earlier you invest, the more years that you have for that compound interest to actually compound. So how can I earn compound interest? Like I said before, the S&P 500 index is the easiest way that you can make compound interest. Whenever you open up your taxable brokerage account or your retirement account, the S&P 500 index is an option. And like I said before, it has an historical annual rate of return of around 10%. But you can also invest in individual stocks. And by stocks, I mean individual companies or bonds, which is basically the debt of companies. Some of the companies listed here on the slide are Tesla, Netflix, Facebook, Google, and Disney. These are all publicly traded companies on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. You can invest in these individually, or you can invest in what are called ETFs, exchange-traded funds. These are basically pools of different assets and different asset allocations that really help with minimizing the risk of diversification. Diversification is whenever you basically don't put all of your eggs in one basket. You want to spread out between different sectors, different companies, so that you have less risk with a higher reward. So now, let me ask you a question. Which chart would you rather have? If you look at this one, it honestly looks like a voice tester. It's very hectic. The standard deviation, it's very risky. You can see it's pretty high in some places, really low in some others. Or you can invest in this one. Obviously, it's still a little bit risky with some ups and downs, some peaks and troughs, but on average, that is the 10% annualized rate of return. The trick question is, these are actually both the same chart of the S&P 500 index. The one that I've previously mentioned was a daily chart of the trading movements of the S&P 500, and this one is just an annual chart. Now you can see that there is a big difference in how you look at investing as a whole and how you look at companies. The main idea to run home with this one is that whenever you invest, make sure that you invest for the long haul and invest early on and as often as you can. So now let's move on to a certain scenario of which path will you choose during graduation and right after. You can see there's the green line and there's the red line. Obviously, you don't want to go on the red line. But let's talk a little bit more about what actually makes up the lines. Now you can see before graduation, if you want to go down the right path, you can accept a part-time job. Personally, for me, I was a tutor at my college or university, and then I moved on to be an assistant for my school of business. The next thing you want to do is after graduation, you can either purchase a used car or you can go and purchase a brand new car. Purchasing a used car is definitely the safer alternative from a financial perspective. After that, if you accept a full-time job, you would want to make sure that you are enrolled in the employer-sponsored retirement plan and that you are contributing at least to the full max of the contribution that they match up to. So the next thing you want to do is pay off your student loan payments. Make extra payments on those student loans and don't just pay the minimum. You want to get those rid of as soon as possible. There's a common saying that you can't start investing until you get rid of your debt. Now, obviously, some people will have debt for the rest of their lives, but as long as you can minimize and manage it, you will be fine. While you're paying off those student loans, you would also want to start saving for a house, saving for that mortgage payment that you have to do. So if you look at the chart, about 10 years after graduation, you have all your student loans totally paid off. Now, this is obviously a generalized statement. Some people will have them paid off well before. Some people might have to wait well after. But with all of these decisions that individual made, they would come out with a solid career foundation and lifetime flexibility in their financial decision-making abilities. They will be, I guess you could say, more financially free than the alternative, which I will discuss right now. So during college, you can remain unemployed and rack up those student loan debts. As soon as you graduate college, you can defer on your student loan payments. You can pay the minimum amount, or you might not even pay the minimum amount, and in which that gets a little bit more complicated, and you do not want to go there. Next thing you would do is if you would accept your full-time job offer, but ignore your 401k or retirement-sponsored plan. This is a very bad idea because, like I said before, no matter what type of plan it is, more often or not, it's usually free money that the employer is giving you. So then let's say that you buy a house that you can't afford. You buy something that's too expensive or out of your means, and you have these payments that you defer on those as well. So you start making worse and worse financial decisions that lead into a snowball effect in where you're ending up with a lifestyle where you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're not financially free. So the obvious question is, which path will you choose? Obviously, it's easier to say that I will have a job during college, I will pay off my student loans early, and then I'll invest for a house that is within my financial range. It's obviously a lot easier said than done. So now let me give you a small example of the buying a pre-owned car or buying a brand new car. So let's say that you're 24 years old and you have $15,000 saved. So you can either buy a pre-owned vehicle that costs that $15,000, so you have no loan and you have no monthly payment. Or you could buy a new vehicle for $59,000, $60,000. That loan amount would be $44,000 if you give the $15,000 down payment. So your monthly payment would be around $730 a month. Obviously, this is a huge difference. So let's say that you buy a brand new vehicle for $59,000 and the loan is $44,000. Now, the loan term can vary depending on the automobile dealership, but we'll go with 72 months or 6 years for now. You have that monthly payment of $730, and so the total amount paid is $67,000, and the money that you wasted, I guess you could say, was $8,500 than if you bought a pre-owned used vehicle. So the car cost $15,000, and so you pay the $15,000 for it. The loan amount is zero, and now you don't have to worry about paying that off. So now let's just say that instead of those 72 months where you're paying $730, those 72 months you're investing $730. Your total investment would turn out to be $67,000. So the money that you earned was around $14,600 as opposed to the money that you wasted buying a brand new vehicle of around $8,500. So there's long-term implications for both of these scenarios. You can buy the pre-owned vehicle and invest the loan amount of that vehicle. So the money invested at the end of the loan, like I said, was $67,000. So let's say that your age at the end of the loan is 30, and so your investment value at age 65 after you're done would be around $716,000. This goes again with the concept of investing early and investing often, because your total money earned by investing would be around $650,000. That concludes the Basic Financial Concepts presentation, or Financial Literacy 101. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to the CFA Society of Pittsburgh at cfasociety.org/Pittsburgh. Thank you, and have a nice day.